In the last video, we talked a little bit about how mutations or changes in the DNA sequence can occur naturally through DNA polymerase enzymes just putting the wrong base in when it's copying DNA and not catching that error, which is definitely something that happens reasonably often. Now, however, there are external factors, chemicals, and things that can also harm or change your DNA. So this is something that is inflicted on you from the outside rather than a natural process that you can't change that's just happening in your cells. Okay, so chemicals or physical things that can alter your DNA sequence are known as mutagens. So that's this title right here, mutagens. These are substances or situations that can alter the DNA sequence. There are multiple chemicals that exist in the world that can get into your body and that can mess up your DNA strands and cause changes in the base pair sequence of your DNA. There's a couple listed here. I mean, everybody's seen tags on various things that say this product contains traces of chemicals that the state of California knows can cause cancer, right? Those are kinds of chemicals that can get into your cells and can change DNA. Basically, is what's going on there. Now, the traces in those products are very, very, very low, and probably the dosages needed to have the effect on your DNA is probably higher. But that's why they label those things in certain states. There's also some information up here. It says there's a chemical called aflatoxin that's made by a fungus or a mold that gets into grain and peanuts that is mutagenic. It's present in peanut butter. Very, 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 very low amounts. Even traces of 9 different substances that have mutagenic properties have been found in fried hamburger. So, when you see this, you can see that there are multiple things that are like assaulting our DNA on a regular basis. And if you listen to this, you think, oh my gosh, like it's amazing I'm still alive, right? Well, your body, you evolved in this environment. You evolved on the earth where these chemicals are around. You've probably been eating peanut butter and peanuts and your ancestors for thousands of years, right? So your body has ways to defend itself against these mutations. Your body has a whole arsenal of enzymes whose job it is to go up and down the chromosomes, looking at the DNA that's been copied to make sure there are no errors. So if DNA polymerase misses the error, one of these enzymes might catch it, can cut out the piece that's messed up and rebuild the DNA and fix it. So you're not defenseless. You should not stop eating peanut butter. You should not quit eating fried hamburger because of this, because your body's used to that and it has defense mechanisms and enzymes that can fix the mutations. And if the DNA if the enzymes don't fix the mutations and the cell turns, the mutation has an impact on the cell, then oftentimes your immune system can pick that up and can kill the cell that's gone rogue or whatever. So there's multiple ways that you are able to protect yourselves. I mean, unless you're eating like 10 pounds of fried hamburger a day and you're overdosing on these chemicals, it's really not a huge issue. There is one mutagen that is actually hard to avoid in large amounts, and that is ultraviolet radiation, UV light, stuff coming from the sun. You can't avoid it, you cannot avoid it, especially in Arizona. We have a lot of sunlight. It's very fierce. We're getting irradiated with UV light all the time. This is the same kind of UV light that is in a tanning salon, for example. So it also naturally comes from the sun, and it can damage your DNA. So this is why large amounts of sun exposure causes skin cancer, because what happens is these photons come from the sun, high energy, ultraviolet power, and they can penetrate through the first layers of your skin into the lower levels of your skin, And if this photon happens to hit a chromosome in a nucleus of a cell, so it's like, you know, hitting a tiny, tiny target, the single chromosome in the nucleus of a single cell, but there's millions, billions of these photons raining down on us all the time. So even though the targets are very small, it does happen. It has to hit a part of a chromosome where there are two thymines side by side. So see, there's a T here and a T here. And if the photon happens to penetrate the cell and hit right on that point of that chromosome where there's two T's side by side, it can cause the base pairing to be disrupted. So normally this T would be hydrogen bonded to this A. I should draw hydrogen bonds. Hydrogen bond here, hydrogen bond here, hydrogen bond here, hydrogen bond here. But if the photon hits that, it can break those hydrogen bonds, and it can cause instead the backbone of the DNA to kink like this, and the two thymines that are side by side to attach to each other with a covalent bond. They become permanently joined together like this. This is called a thymine dimer. And it's generally caused by UV light hitting the backbone of a DNA strand where there's two T's side by side. So here's an example of a thymine dimer that's being created because this chromosome got struck by an ultraviolet photon. But never fear, there's an enzyme to save the day. Here it comes, this big green blob. It's coming in because recognize where the DNA doesn't look quite right. It's got a kink in the backbone. So it's going to cut this piece of DNA out, get rid of it, and then rebuild a nice piece of DNA that has the correct base pairs. So this potential mutation, which occurred right here, is being fixed by a DNA repair enzyme, which is this green blob, can take out the mistake, fix the DNA. So again, you're not powerless against the actions of ultraviolet light on your DNA. Obviously, if we were powerless, we'd all die of skin cancer. We'd be long gone from the earth. But you can repair the error, the mistakes. You just can't repair too many of them. So like if you're laying out and sunbathing with no sunscreen for hours on end, you're creating so many of these thymine dimers that your poor DNA repair enzymes can't keep up. They can catch most of them and they can fix most of them, but maybe one or two just skip through and don't get fixed because their enzymes are just working too hard, right? So that's why tanning is a bad idea, and that's why wearing sunscreen is a good idea, because you can limit the thymine dimer damage and let your DNA repair enzymes do the job without getting overwhelmed. So